Welcome to Panda Head Studios. Now that you're here, hit that subscribe button and join the Panda Force. Today we're talking about The Way of the Househusband.
The show is, first off, fantastic, and I absolutely love it. It's over on Netflix. It's total of like 5 episodes long. They're each about 17 minutes, give or take. And the show in and of itself is kind of exactly what the title says. This, at least in my opinion, wasn't misleading in any way. Because it follows this character called Tatsu, who's a former Yakuza member and well known in the Yakuza world as the Immortal Dragon. And it's just him living his day-to-day life, like doing household chores, cooking, cleaning, all this other stuff, and like doting on his loving wife. And that's really it. There's not like this huge, grand, overarching story. It's everything's broken down into like little, I want to say like 3 to 4 minute segment thing.
Well, they call them episodes.
They do call them episodes within it, yeah. But I think they're about like 3 to 4 minutes or so each. And it's a lot of fun. I think all the characters were well portrayed. Tatsu himself the most because he is the primary focus, but like even his wife I felt was well developed. The sidekick he ends up getting that's a former member of his family is, I think, well developed. And I honestly, like, the thing I feel like I like the most about this show is the fact that it's done in a full motion comic style.
That's one of the most interesting things I kind of encountered. I didn't really do any research. I just happen to have a lot of friends that are in the circle, so this isn't coming from some like special source, but apparently that they're like people are taking issue with the fact that they didn't know it was a motion comic, and they wish it had been advertised that way, which I didn't really care. It's what to me. Normally, I don't like motion comics, and and I've seen some really crappy ones that people really like.
Oh, yeah.
There's an X-Men one. It's atrocious, but I've heard people like praise it, and I'm like, this is the way you do it. It really brings everything to life.
Yeah.
In fact, it actually suits it better if they wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the shots and images they did the same way with that. Like, there's really, like, every time you see him talk, he's had his cocked, and it's like he's half shadow. And he just looks like it's supposed to be so incredibly intimidating. And he's just saying, like, everything that a house husband would say, but in, like, a scary Yakuza way.
Yeah, and honestly, like, probably my favorite one of those that he does is actually a little bit earlier on in it. It's his wife's birthday. And he does this really grand birthday, like, celebration thing in their apartment where he's got, like, banners, and I don't know that specifically if it's a reference to like Yakuza traditions or things like that, but from what I've seen from media, other movies, things like that, it feels like that's what they're referencing with it. But what I love is when he goes to bring out the cake and sing happy birthday, is he brings it out and then they show him bringing it out and then it cuts to his face and it's like, happy birthday to, and it's just like, it's so funny.
Oh, and that's
he's clearly saying something that is meant to bring her joy and happiness, but just the way he talks and like how he holds himself and how the animation was done all gives this like menacing, like, I don't want that guy to sing me happy birthday. He adores it.
That's one of my favorite things in his character that they do is it's in both the Japanese and English versions. He talks like he smokes a pack of cigarettes a day.
Yeah.
Like, his voice is so gravelly. And you always see him smoke. He's always smoking. And then he always, another one of my favorite defining traits of him is he always takes things in a very Yakuza way. Like, in that very same scene, he gets his wife a DVD set of her favorite anime. Or is it
it's a DVD set of the second season of her favorite anime.
Yeah, and she goes, I already have this one. And he's like, I brought great shame to you. And he goes to cut off his finger, and she has to kick him out the window to stop him. And Like there's those little things. Like my favorite one of all those, one of my favorite ones, because there's so much. Like I have almost nothing. I actually can't even think about it. It's probably one of the first times I have nothing. I'm a cynical person who wants to shit on everything, and
He really is.
I really find very little wrong with this, to where I can't even. I racked my brain before we did this to try and think of something to comment on about how bad this was. But even something like there's so much stupid stuff in here, but because of the pacing, the way they're showing everything, it made me laugh. And like one of my favorite scenes is just a simple scene of her telling him he dresses too intimidating. Mind you, he always dresses like a Yakuza. You'd see in all like the Yakuza video games or any other Yakuza like cliched stuff. And she tells him he needs new outfits, so he goes and gets new outfits, and every one he chooses is just a different style that you would see on all the different depictions of Yakuza. And eventually he walks past a window, and he goes, "That's perfect." And he always that's one of the things that like kind of defines him in his physical look, is he always has apron on over his like nice
his suit, yeah.
And he comes up to her, and he's just wearing a pink apron that has her favorite anime characters on it, and she loves it.
Yeah.
It's those little scenes, and that's like a whole episode. It's just that whole part is one in the way they broke it down.
Yeah, that's the weird thing. Like, I keep wanting to call these like little scenes, but they are in of themselves the episode. Like the birthday one, that was the whole episode, beginning to end. Like the only thing we didn't mention is he went to buy the DVD set. Woo. But like everything we're referring to as scenes is really just because like if you watch any other anime or any other like television show medium that's, you know,
even if it's episodic in the same nature as this,
but those are usually, you know, 24 25 minute long episodes. That's the whole episode, because these are broken down so well. Like I keep wanting to call them scenes when that's really not what they are. They are in fact that chapter or that episode. And it's like, I will say, like, I will actually be the cynical one on this. Really the only one out of everything, and mind you, this is just like the weakest of all of the jokes in my opinion. It was still very good, still very funny, and still landed. Was there's 2 episodes that follow their cat.
I loved them. I thought they were hilarious.
They are funny. I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying out of all of the jokes for the whole season, in my opinion, those 2 jokes are the weakest of them all. They're still very funny and very good though.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That is fair. It was kind of a nice little breather, and like, because you can watch this in like an hour and a half, and those 2 cat episodes kind of give you a nice little breather, and it shows you what the cat does in its day-to-day life, because he always tells the cat to like watch the house and stuff, and he leaves the apartment and the cat locks the door behind him and then goes off on his adventure, which I love. Like, there's all sorts of little details like that. Like, and like one of my favorite scenes in the whole show is he's setting up. He's getting like making a nice dinner for his wife, and his wife's coming with the big boss. That's what it is. Her boss is coming over, so he's making a nice dinner. And he's got all the stuff set up, and he's talking to someone off camera, like in a very Yakuza way. Your new member of the family, I trust you. And then it's a Roomba.
Well, the other thing about that, just in a Yakuza way, is it's also like he's shirtless. You're seeing all of his like Yakuza tattoos, and the shading there, like, is you periodically, when people reference his backstory, you see him sitting on like a group of bodies, and the imagery is very like muted in color and everything. So when this scene opens, that's what they have, is these muted colors, him shirtless, his hair's a bit of a mess, he's got the cigarette, and you see all of his tattoos. So you think you're getting this like hop back in time to his Yakuza days, like flashback thing, which I love the fact that it's not that. I think that was a really good way to do expectation subversion, because a show like this, you would expect them, especially with how much they reference the fact that he's former Yakuza, they would do a flashback episode. The only flashback anyone ever sees, or that you ever see from this, is people recognizing him, which really isn't a flashback, but like in regards to seeing him in the past, is just him seeing him sitting on a group of bodies. And that's it. Like, that's the only flashback.
You also, when his wife talks about for the first time they met, where he was all bloodied up and sitting against the wall with his shirt off.
That's true, yeah.
And she says he's a lot softer now. But that scene I was talking about, where he's setting up the dinner, like he gets the Roomba going and it just treads off real slow. And he's like, oh, you got to get the corners with a stick or the rag on it. He's like scrubbing the corners, and then something distracts him, and he tells the cat. Or the cat messes with him. He tells the cat to go away. and the cat decides to go mess with all the food he has set up, which causes it all to like go everywhere, and he tries to save it. And then, of course, his wife immediately comes in. And it looks like he was in, like, a gunfight and someone was stabbed. There's blood everywhere when it's really just the wine broke everywhere. Then you can see him laying there in in the puddle of wine that looks like blood. And the Roomba just comes through and just leaves a trail of it to go to its dock and just park. And it just tops off the whole joke, because the entirety of the episode is her just seeing him in the, like, looking like she saw her husband all bloodied up.
Yeah, it's so good.
Yeah, and normally that kind of stuff would not land so well, but they just time it so well. The style of the imagery, it does so.
And I think what really helps it is because this is a motion comic style, is they can cut out certain aspects that, like, most shows that do a scene, not in a similar sense to that, you're watching all the food fall apart and land and spill on the ground. Like this, you get a scene of watching a bunch of the food fall and get messed up, and then it cuts to some other event that's happening, and then you get to see the whole imagery at the end. You're not watching the food fall to the ground. You're not watching, like, every single step. Like, I think that's really is what helping a lot of these jokes land, is that they're cutting out certain segments that get tiresome. Like, I don't need, like, great, I saw food falling. I don't need to watch it slam into the ground, then watch the next event that's technically happening at the same time.
Yeah, and like one of the best applications of that is like the last episode I really want to talk about, where they're going to buy a car, and him and his wife are going to buy a car, and like they go to a dealership, and they have this like nice sports car, and she's like, no way, we're getting this. Then they do like an SUV. And he's lying in the back of it like a dead body, and he goes, "You can fit a whole body in there." And the car dealer just looks absolutely petrified at this.
He's horrified.
And then eventually talks him into getting something that looks like a Scion. You know those cars that look like, it's probably a Toyota, because I think Toyota has one. Anyway, it's those cars that are boxes on wheels.
Yeah,
like that's the way I always describe them. It's just a little box on wheels, and they talk him into taking a test drive. And tells him to take it very seriously. And every single human being he sees walking outside, he sees as a threat. There's a person that's a gate person. He thinks the little wand that the gate guy has, that's like a signal thing, is going to be a knife, and he's going to stab him. And then he sees an old man who's pushing like a little push cart thing. And then he pulls out a rocket launcher, and he's just driving like a maniac, and his wife and the car dealer are losing their minds. And then he just gets out and he's like, I can't be part of this team. It's a cigarette, and that's how the scene ends.
It's so good.
There's so many other great scenes that
we really could go on and on about this, and I would love to, but just go. My ultimate conclusion of all of this is, like, seriously, go watch this. It's so much fun. And you lose yourself in it.
Yeah, you can binge watch it, or you can watch it in 5-minute stints, and you won't miss a thing.
Yeah.
Every piece is so self-contained. They have tiny little breadcrumbs that take you in a story, but there's only a couple of them. It's like you get like a hat, you get an open-faced sandwich.
And what's nice is, like,
overarching story.
But even though, like, those breadcrumbs are sort of throughout it, like, even if you skip one of them because you're like, oh, I don't really care for it, like, you still get enough of, like, the information in the next time that breadcrumb shows up to figure out, like, why it's there.
Yeah.
When he has these, when his former family member ends up, like, tagging along with him, like, you can skip parts of him, but when you see him later, you get why he's there. Like, there's enough information about his character within these, like, 4 or 5 minute segments to understand why he's there. And I think that's a really, really strong point for this show, is that you can skip segments and you're fine.
Yeah.
I don't recommend it just because I thought every joke was really funny. I thought everything landed. I really think that, like, JC Staff, which is the animation studio for this show, did an amazing job with it. I so much enjoyed this, and I think they did great work on it.
This is from an unreliable source, but it's apparently the person who wrote this whole thing wanted it to be a motion comic, specifically because of the nature of his story, and apparently he fought for that, and I like if that's true, like I could totally understand why, because this is just like the perfect depiction. And it genuinely feels like a lot of the, like when motion comics first kind of cropped up, and like when I remember them coming up, because I don't know when they really started, but like that's how they did it. Is it would be like little 2-minute blurb episodes.
Yeah.
And this is like you get the whole thing, and you like it. You can watch like just go watch this. I
absolutely go watch
about every scene because there's so many great scenes. There's another person who is another person who is a former Yakuza. He meets his arch rival, and both of those episodes. There's an episode with another Yakuza who's retired, and then his rival. Both those episodes are pure gold.
And the final episode where he meets his former boss, like it's so. Just everything about this show is great. Go watch it.
Yeah. Go watch it.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Thank you for watching. We'd love to hear your thoughts on Way of the Househusband in the comments down below. And let us know what your favorite short was out of it. And while you're there, don't forget to hit that like button. And now that you're part of the Panda Force, hit that bell icon for future orders.
And if you're interested in joining us gaming, check us out on Twitch. And for updates, follow us on Twitter. The links are in the description down below.